Well, it seems like with modern superhero movies, nothing really grabs people's attentions more than the two words, test screenings. And recently, both the Fantastic Four and Superman have had a lot of test screenings. Now, this has generated quite the response, and I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about what I kind of thought about all this and how important it is, how it impacts the box office, and more importantly, is it a true testament to the quality of the product? And all those answers tend to be, well, it depends. So let's dive in. Well, honestly, this summer we've got some pretty big superhero titles coming our way. July is going to be a massive month, with Jurassic Park releasing alongside Superman and Fantastic Four. Now, both the Fantastic Four First Steps and Superman are a big deal. Superman is James Gunn's first official DCU movie, and Fantastic Four First Steps is something Marvel fans have clamored for a long time, seeking out a somewhat comic-accurate version of the characters, and more importantly, having them in the MCU. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we've started to have a series of test screenings, and these test screenings have garnered a lot of attention. So we're going to talk about Superman, and then we're going to talk about the Fantastic Four. Now, honestly, when these first test screenings for Superman came in, well, they were sort of mixed, and it became kind of easy to sort of dive into the possibilities that this movie could be in trouble, and if this movie's in trouble, all of DC Studios could be in trouble. Now, recently, we started to get a report of a second test screening, and that test screening seemed to make significant changes to the original film. Now, outside of some post-credit stuff being removed, it sounds like Superman kind of made some adjustments that might have worked. We did find out a second composer was enlisted, and quite often that's not necessarily a major cause for concern, but apparently there were quite a few tweaks when it came to editing. Now, keep in mind, editing is probably the biggest thing that comes out of test screenings. Things like pacing are so important for a movie, and when the movie's not paced right, it can often fall apart. Keep in mind, what's considered one of the best re-edit jobs in the history of movies was way back in 1977 with Star Wars. There are numerous reports that suggest that George Lucas's original version of this film was drab, long, and boring, and thankfully his wife edited the movie in such a way that it absolutely connected with fans. You've actually seen this in fan edits sometimes where they take something that doesn't really work and then re-edit it into something that does and tracks much better with audiences. Now, I fully suspect that Superman will be getting these kind of tweaks all the way to the last moment. And if you know any artist, this really isn't unusual, because quite often they are never really done with a project, just the deadline lands and they have to stop working on it. Now, Gunn has said that they're still working on a couple of details, but the film is near lock, so I'm not expecting big changes. But don't be surprised if when the movie comes out, well, the people that saw the test screenings will report a lot of changes made to the film. Now, I have heard some specifics. Apparently, there is no post-credit scene referencing Brainiac, which may have been part of that first test screening. And more importantly, one change that fans seemed to welcome was that Ultraman apparently punched Krypto in the head at one point, and the dog lets out a loud yelp. And apparently that was removed from the movie because test audiences hate it when dogs get punched. I think Superman's probably going to be okay. But those initial audience reactions and reviews drive a lot of people into seats, and this movie needs to land because, like Marvel Studios, DC Studios needs a big win, just for different reasons. Now, as for the Fantastic Four, well, we got our first public test screening earlier this week, and that actually took place in Los Angeles. Now, like with Superman, you always want to take the feedback with a pinch of salt, because only a small handful of people attend these screenings, and only a few of them feel the need to share their thoughts with reporters and leakers. So these reports are far from reliable. Now, keep in mind sometimes too, these results are not very accurate. Remember, Jeff Snyder actually reported that the response to Sinners was mixed and that Warner Brothers should be worried. And at this point, the movie sits with a 97% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and did $340 million on a $90 million budget. That is a grand slam and a great example of how test screenings are often not reflective of what the final product looks like or how it's received. Now, with that said, Snyder is sharing some stuff he heard about the Fantastic Four, and honestly, I think Marvel might need to be a little worried if this turns out to be true. But first, let's hear what he said. Now, according to him, quote, "My source called it both mid and meh, and not that bad, but not that good either. Most concerningly, they said it featured weak character development and bad CGI, although the latter issue will certainly be addressed over the next month. In general, Marvel doesn't do test screenings unless they're worried. That was the case with The Eternals, The Marvels, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Captain America: Brave New World. While I heard Marvel was high on first steps internally, a separate industry source who has not seen the finished film himself has sounded the alarm in recent weeks that the film is, quote, a mess and a huge problem movie. That said, it sounds like Ralph Enson's Galactus went over well with the crowd last night, which is encouraging seeing as Marvel has had a villain problem as of late. Now, to be fair, Marvel still does have a couple of months to fix this up, but it definitely sounds like a movie that's landing in the range with test screenings at about where Captain America Brave New World is. And this is genuinely concerning for me. Just like DC Studios needs a win to get off the ground, Marvel needs this win right now to stay alive. Quite honestly, in the last couple of years, they've only had a couple of really successful films. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Deadpool and Wolverine were massive hits, but everything else kind of fell short of expectations. And if this reboot disappoints, it's definitely going to cut off not only future plans for the Fantastic Four, but definitely could impact how much money Marvel and Disney are willing to spend on those Avengers movies, which, according to recent reports, Doomsday needs to make $2 billion to break even, which sounds insane, and could absolutely threaten the stability of Marvel Studios in the future, potentially reducing it to a much smaller footprint on the movie world than we've seen over the last decade. Now, in either case, we want to take test screenings, well, with that grain of salt we take from scoopers. Not many people get to see these test screenings, and those that choose to talk are a subset of those people, meaning more than likely they're either people who want to complain or people who want to cheerlead, not really the most rational people to take information from. Now, I'm going to see both of these movies, and there's no doubt in my mind where I'm going to be come this July, but I find the whole thing rather, well, discouraging because we're not seemingly getting the quality of film that we were just a few years ago. It seems like just yesterday, every film Marvel was making was basically a home run. And although Marvel has refocused on quality over quantity, and I thought Brave New World and Thunderbolts were great films and on par with many of their projects from the past, well, the financial returns were not there. And no matter how much we like a movie, the studio needs it to make money. And if Marvel doesn't start making money, well, they're going to be in trouble. Now, we're going to follow both of these movies really closely. I will see you all in the theaters come this July. But until we know more, I want to know what you guys think. How much real faith do you guys actually put in people that go to test screenings? And do you think either or both of these movies are actually in trouble? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Before we take off, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC news, and we want to bring you all the news truthfully and transparently so you're really in the know.